gonna start. So this is the SUSE Manager Automation with the API. So I will introduce myself. So it's me. I'm Gaëtan Trélu, and I'm a solution architect at SUSE. I joined 6 months ago, so I'm pretty new, and I will pretend a lot of things, like I know SUSE Manager, for example, even if I don't. So bear with me. I'm in Canada, so some of you already know that I'm a French speaker. So this is the city where I'm from. If you want to know exactly where, you will have to basically check for that. But it's in Quebec. So, and sadly, this is not a picture of a lake in Quebec, but this is the one that we have in Canada. This is Moraine Lake, and this is on the west. So another clue, I'm not from the west side. A quick agenda. So what's SUSE Manager? It will be quick because, you know, if you are here, it's mostly because you know what SUSE Manager is. If not, you should have attended a different session because it's not a deep dive in SUSE Manager. So I will be very quick about what it is. What's an API? I'm pretty sure everybody knows what it is. It's not new. It's just a simple reminder to make sure that we are all agree on the definition. What's the SUSE Manager API? So how you can leverage them and what's the documentation, etc. Security through automation, which the previous point might be the 2 points that you might remember from this session. Security is always better with automation, in my opinion. And then we will have two demos. Sorry. So a demo with Ansible. I'm using Ansible. So it's everywhere, so why not? Let's be honest, Ansible is in many companies. So we have Salt, we have Puppet, we have Chef. As long as there is automation, you're fine. So here I'm going to leverage Ansible. And the second demo will be with a chatbot. So because it's fun. So maybe next year, a llama model, like an integration, asking SUSE Manager via a chatbot to do some stuff, and potentially asking some feedback. And some thoughts, if I still have, if I don't spoke too much during the session. So, what's a SUSE Manager? I guess, as I mentioned, you are all familiar with what it is. This is one of the common slides. So this is a truly open solution that will help you to manage your Linux estate. What it means, it's by truly open, it's as all the SUSE products fully open source, so you will get all the project on GitHub, the UUNI, I don't know how to pronounce it. Sorry about that. But you will have the community version available on GitHub, and truly open because compared to other vendors, we are not only managing our distribution, but we are managing different distribution. So that will be a slide that I will show as well to basically give you an idea of what we are supporting as distribution within SUSE Manager. So it's cool, it's a tool to manage your infrastructure, but what does it do exactly? So it will help you to patch your Linux distribution, manage the updates, and some configuration as well, leveraging some automation to do that. It runs everywhere, so it runs everywhere, and it can manage many things. So it can manage your Linux infrastructure at core, which means within your data center. So you have your racks, your servers, or you maybe just have virtual machines. So it can do that. It can manage some hardware on the edge. So edge is a big word. It's a big umbrella. It could be like a very powerful, very beefy server, but in a dedicated location. It could just be a Raspberry Pi. So it could be everything. And on the cloud. So if you have, for example, EC2 instances, or you are on GCP and you have virtual machine in there, you can register this system within SUSE Manager. And all of that from only one interface, which is pretty good. You don't have to go through many interfaces to have an idea about the status of your Linux distribution. What it does, because of the patching, but not only, it ensures compliance and security within your company. So you can run some tools such as OpenSCAP to making sure that you are following compliance, making sure that a profile that is assigned to a server is fully respected. And it scales very well, so from 10 to 1 million. So as I'm new at SUSE, I never experienced the 1 million server. I experienced the 10 and the hundreds. I know Anne-Marie did some stuff at scale. And from the keynote this morning, I heard some hundreds of thousands of nodes, I think, have been deployed as well using SUSE Manager. And yeah, basically it will help you to manage your different Linux distribution through a single pane of glass. Are we agree on that? Yeah? No? I would say yes. So I mentioned many distribution. So for sure, we are managing the SUSE one. So all the SLEs, SLE Micro, SLEs for SAP, SUSE Liberty, OpenSUSE Leap. But not only, we are managing as well all the Red Hat-like, such as CentOS, of course, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, Rocky Linux, Alma Linux, which has RPM-based distribution. We are managing the Debian-based distribution, so Debian, of course, and Ubuntu. So for Debian, it will be Debian 11, 12. Ubuntu, it will be the LTS, so I think 2004, 2204. And for RHEL, I forgot to mention, but it will be 7, 8, 9, CentOS 7, and Rocky Linux, whatever version, and Alma Linux, whatever version as well. And the two last are the Amazon Linux 2 and the Oracle Linux, I think 8 and 9 maybe. So as you can see, it's really open. So we are managing many different distributions. So if you are running some Ubuntu and you are currently running patching via automation, maybe Ansible, maybe Bash, maybe manually, SUSE Manager might be a solution for you. So what's an API? It's not a definition that I made because we kind of all have our own definition, like, oh, this is an API, and if you speak to someone else, they have their own definition, and then you finish in a fight on the street because you are not agree about what's API. So here it's a definition from Wikipedia, which I kind of trust. And then to make sure that they were not fooling with me, I just check on AWS, which they know, I think, a bit about API. So an API basically will be a way to communicate between two things. These two things might be an application or maybe two applications. It could be servers. It could be just a way of communication between two or many participants. And AWS gave us even some example. A simple one, but I think a good one, sorry, to wrap our head about what it is exactly. So we have the Weather Bureau software ecosystem containing all the weather data in one place. So how do you basically retrieve this data from your phone? You will not directly have your phone with an application connecting on their servers. If they do that, they should be out of business. But they will provide you this data through an API. And so through this API, you will have multiple write, multiple access, multiple endpoints to retrieve this kind of data. I guess we are all agree on that. So now, the SUSE Manager API. I discovered that like with this session before basically being involved in this preparation. I was not very aware about what was the SUSE API, the SUSE Manager API, which I think it's bad because this is actually very powerful. And when I deep dive through the API, I was a bit overwhelmed by the amount of endpoint available and the categories. So I was like, okay, I will check for the documentation. It's very well documented, and you have 62 categories, if I didn't miscount. And on each of these categories, you have many endpoints. Like for example, if we take one category, you will have the system category. And from this system category, you will have maybe 50 endpoints to list the registered system, to get the packages, and so on, and so on, and so on. So a very, very, very well-built API with many endpoints that gives you many possibilities to automate. It's an authenticated API, so what you need is basically a user password. And with this user password, you will retrieve a cookie, and this cookie will allow you basically to do HTTP requests through this API. So it's not an open API. Nobody can use it if they are not part of the SUSE Manager identity. As I mentioned, it's pretty well documented. It's an XML and RPC API. So it depends on what you like. For me, I'm a REST API guy. I never use that much an XML RPC, but you have two implementations. You use what you want to use. I like the REST API because it's very well documented, supported by many languages, and it's easier at least, and for me. How to interact with this API? So basically any language that supports HTTP requests. So the basic one, Python, for sure. With the request module, you will be able to perform any GET, POST actions. And the Perl one is for Craig, which I inherited this session. So he showed me some Perl script. I didn't see Perl script for a long time, but it was kind of fun to see that it was still there in use. So, Craig, if you're watching this session later, thank you. And you can interact with the API as well with automation tools. So, and this is basically what I will demo later. But components such as SaltStack, Ansible, and Terraform all have HTTP module or plugins or whatever you want to call it to interact with HTTP requests. So basically, you give an endpoint, you give the payload that you want, if it's a pod, if it's a post, sorry, and then you get the output and you do what you have to do with the output. So this is what a very simple Python script will looks like if you want to interact with the SUSE Manager API. So I'm not a Python developer, so please don't hate me if you see weird stuff in there. I tried to be very simple. It had to fit on a one page. So that's very easy. As I mentioned, you have to authenticate. So to authenticate, you need for sure information such as the host, the endpoint, the user, the password. And because I'm not running a trusted SSL certificate, basically I'm not verifying it. This is the payload for the logging, so a very basic payload. This will be used with a post. So what I'm doing, it's like I'm sending a post request to this endpoint, so the hot login endpoint with the payload just right here. And then I'm retrieving the cookies. As I mentioned earlier, the way you authenticate with the SUSE Manager API is with a cookie. So this cookie, once I got it, I'm basically reusing it in with all the other HTTP requests that I will send. So we can see it here. It's just a GET, a very simple GET. So I'm asking SUSE Manager to give me the list of the registered nodes. And I'm passing the cookies, which allows me to do the authenticated request. And here it's just a basic output. Again, it's returning JSON, so it's easier for me to parse, and it's easy to feed to anything else. So what it looks like when you run this script, you get this kind of output. Again, very basic. We have the status of the request, which is a success. For sure, if it's not, it will be a false. So you can trigger action based on Boolean as well within your automation. And here I just have the returns, the output of 2 registered nodes that I have within my SUSE Manager. So this is a very basic Python script returning a very basic output, but you can do way more complex stuff. And I will show that within the second demo, when you can write a very more complicated Python skill, Python stuff to interact with the API. So I mentioned earlier securities through automation. So it's a slide. It's not a slide from me. It's a slide that I found from previous presentation. But I think it gives an overview of what SUSE Manager is able to do already by itself. So you will be able. SUSE Manager basically has already many automated tasks or many capabilities to automate tasks already built in within the product. So to secure your Linux environment, there is an idea like, oh, we should not automate the patching because we want to know exactly what's happening. I don't want to have a package being deployed without knowing exactly what it is, without to know which version, without to know the impact. It's true and not true. I think it's a way of thinking that was good in the past, but now, because we have more and more automation, we should not be afraid of automate the patching, because patching doesn't mean that you will break something. You will break something when you didn't test something. With automation, you don't have any more excuse to say, oh, no, I cannot test it on my, I don't know, 100 nodes. It's too long, it's too complicated. So you will be able to secure your infrastructure with automated patching and configuration management that provide remediation. What does it mean? It's you could trigger, for example, some salt formulas to be executed on host, to making sure that if a file has been tempered or changed, this will be basically back to what was applied by the formula. Sorry. You can run as well, as I mentioned earlier, the SCAP profiling, which is really related to the security. So if you have one node that should act as a database, you will potentially have a SCAP profile that will be perfectly fitted for a database. And you can ask the manager to generate, reports and check to making sure that your database server is fully following the SCAP profile. If not, then you will have to do remediation, maybe via SaltStack as mentioned earlier, or maybe you are missing something and you need to improve your automation because maybe the profile has been updated. You can do automated patching as well to follow your company compliance. So let's say you have a patching that has to happen every 3 months. So you can just schedule this and making sure that all your hosts, all your Linux distribution are up to date based on some criteria. And with the live patching, that basically should not be another excuse to not patch your Linux distribution, because most of the time, and I have been a sysadmin for a long time, it's like, yeah, sure, we are patching. So we patched like 95% of the packaging, everything is working fine, but we still need to restart some services because they need to load a new libc update maybe. And the worst one is the kernel. Like, oh my God, I need to reboot the server because I got a kernel update, and if I want to get the latest patch, so it means that I will have a downtime, I need to speak to the customer, blah, 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 which means that 6 months later, you still have an issue because you were not able to find a maintenance window with your customer. The live patching resolves this issue. So you will have, I think it's 18 months to plan this update. So if after 18 months, you are not able to find a maintenance windows with your customer, I think there is another issue. The next one. So what might be the use case? Because all of the previous slide was automation, and was automation part of SUSE Manager already. So you can schedule recurrent tasks to do that. But what will be the case of leveraging the SUSE Manager API? This might be two. For sure there are others, but these are the one that I had in mind. So the first one, it's a patching update. So you're using a ServiceNow or Jira or whatever ticketing that you have for your ITSM. And then there is someone asking like, hey, please, I would like you, if he says, please, because sometimes it's just, hey, patch the server. So if you have a polite colleague, he will ask you politely to update all the servers to all the patches until June 2024. But with some exception, like, hey, we did some testing and we were not able to use the latest Tomcat version, so we need to make sure that we are staying on the same version. So upgrade everything except Tomcat. So I can already see some admin being like, I will have to do some pinning in the packaging, or maybe making sure that this package never arrived on the repo. So a lot of pain, etc. And of course, please don't break anything, which I think this person was not supposed to ask, because as a system administrator, you don't want to break anything. And the second one is potentially an alert raised by your monitoring system. So here it's Prometheus, and most of the time when you have a Prometheus, you have an alert manager to trigger action based on monitoring. And somehow you got a red alert on your big database server that should never be down, but it happens. So an alert got raised, and you received a notification. And you have to do something, because if you don't, you will have trouble, and your boss will be pissed. So how do you do that? You think that, okay, how can I leverage the SUSE Manager API when I got a service request from ServiceNow, for example? And you are wondering, like, if it works, no, yes. So I redo the transition for the wow effect. Wow, so how do you do that? There is way, and they are the way that I mentioned earlier, leveraging automation or Python or scripting, whatever. I mentioned Python and Golang, but if you just want to do some bash script with curl, you're fine. So as long as you know how to leverage and how to speak to this API. So what can I do if I got a service request from ServiceNow to do something within SUSE Manager? So the next example will be mostly based on the ServiceNow part. So in this case, what you want to achieve, it's what you want to do, it's you want to leverage the content lifecycle management. By doing that, you will have the granularity, basically, to choose what you want to be patched on your servers. And again, as I mentioned earlier, nothing that has been tested should not be in production. So basically, everything going in production is things that you are sure 100% that it will not break a thing. So the way how the content lifecycle, so I will just do the short, because I will not say content lifecycle management every time. So the lifecycle, the way how it works, it's basically you will have multiple environments. So first you will select some sources. You might apply some filter. In our case, it will be the Tomcat filter. And then you will build this environment. You will build this to a specific environment. So maybe the dev first. And once you did all the testing, making sure that it didn't break your dev environment, you will promote this to the testing or the QA. So you are one level above in the food chain, if I can say it that way. So the dev did all the tests. They make sure that the application is working fine. All the packages that have been applied on the servers didn't break anything obvious. So the devs just signed off and, okay, it works. Then it goes to the QA. QA will basically just go through all the UI and doing all the tests, running their Who did that? Okay, you get out. It's a joke. You're fine, I'm sorry. So, yeah, all the QA team will do all the tests, and it should not be manual tests. Again, we are in 2024. We should have automation. So even if it's a web UI, you can just run some Selenium, etc. Just very basic stuff. You don't have any more excuse anymore to do it manually, except, because there is always the except and the little asterisk somewhere, you can't. But that will be a very edge case. Once the QA team validates everything, they signed off, they're like, okay, we're sure 100% that everything is fine, you are going through production. And this is usually when everybody got stressed and nobody is available for the weekend to be on call, because they knew that there is a release happening on production, so everybody is hiding. But they should not, because everything has been tested, right? So this is what the content lifecycle management will help you to do. So to do that through the UI, and again, I did that via the SUSE Manager UI. You can use, of course, the space command. You can use the bootstrap script to register nodes. But here, hey, I joined 6 months ago. I don't know all of that, so I'm going through the UI as like someone new to SUSE Manager do. So to log through the UI, it's 3 clicks, and all of that doesn't count the keystrokes, you know, that you have to type. Like if you have a simple login name, that's okay, but because of the compliance of your company, you have a beefy password that you need to remember. So you're typing that. It's 3 clicks. Then you logged. So you create the content, the lifecycle filter to making sure that you are using a specific Tomcat version. It's 9 clicks. You create the project. 6 clicks. So and so on and so on and so on. So I will not go through all of that. And here I have been kind. You don't have any groups, because I assume that technically if you are registering nodes, you already have groups. And I'm potentially missing some stuff, so please don't kill me. But yeah, this is a basic gist of the action, of the flow that you will have to follow to create a content lifecycle management with some sources, some filters, some environment, building that, registering a node, and etc. So, if I didn't miscount, it should be around 83 clicks. I told you I was bad at math, so I think I got it, and maybe I forgot some click when I was clicking. But yeah, you know, I'm a dad, so I have some spare time when everybody is asleep, so I'm counting my clicks on the UI. It's like that. So 83 clicks, and again, it's not that bad, you know. If you do that only a few times, that's fine. But if you are, you know, again, we are in 2024, and we don't want to do content lifecycle every 3 months. We want to be able to update, like when an update happens. So we want to be very reactive. So we don't want to do that many times a day or many times a week. So this is where automation basically comes very useful. So as I mentioned earlier, I will use Ansible and AWX, and I'm taking a pause, sorry. So who basically use Ansible here? Okay. Who use AWX? Okay, so fewer. It's always the same. So many people raise the hand with Ansible core, and when we are speaking about bigger automation, less hands. That's fine. So I'm going to use AWX. So here and here. So the setup is very basic. I have my SUSE Manager. I have my AWX. I deploy AWX using the AWX operator. So I'm using a Rancher. I'm using Rancher desktop on my laptop, which basically gives me a local Kubernetes, and I just deploy the AWX operator to do that very quickly, very simple. So if you never tried Rancher desktop, it's a good way to start the Kubernetes journey. So it's a very basic AWX. I got 2 templates here. I got the create and build and the promote production. So it's basically what we got 2 slides ago, with 1 row with the many clicks, and the second one with only 4 steps with fewer clicks. I'm using AWX because I mentioned earlier that we want to leverage ServiceNow. We want to do actions with ServiceNow. ServiceNow has some capabilities to interact with external webhook based on business roles. And I didn't do that in the demo because first, I don't know how to do it, and I don't want to spend much time learning ServiceNow now. But basically, you can say to ServiceNow, hey, I got a request with an approval request. So once this change got approved, I want something to happen. This something could be like asking ServiceNow, hey, when it's done, just go trigger a webhook. Ansible and AWX has the capability to trigger a job, an Ansible template, via an API call, which is pretty cool. So here I will simulate that someone approved the change for the server patching, and what it does basically, it's this. So maybe before going, no, I will run it directly. It will be quick if everything goes well. If everything goes wrong, it's because of Austin. He's not here to defend himself, so that's okay. So what it does all the actions that I mentioned earlier. So it does the logging. So basically it retrieves a cookie. It creates a filter, a lifecycle filter, a lifecycle project. It attaches the source, so the base channel and the child channel. It creates the environment. It builds the environment as well. It creates the activation key, and it registers nodes. So I got 2 nodes, and don't worry, the failing loop is expected. And what it's not expected is when it goes below 11 retries. So if it's going below 11 retry, that might not be good. So let's hope it's working. Basically, I got 2 virtual machines. One with so 2 sleds 15 SP5, one for the staging environment, one for the production environment, and it seems to be okay. So if I'm reloading the output, we can see that everything went well. I got a node registered, and now if I'm going to the Suma UI. So did you count how many clicks? No, nobody counted. Okay. So if I'm going on the content lifecycle, I can see that I have a lifecycle that has been created 2 minutes ago. So within this lifecycle, I got my description, my label, etc., and I got my base channel, which is basically sleds 15. I got the child channel attached as well. I got my filter here that has been created. So the name of the filter is the first month of 2024. I didn't do the full June part because the building process would have been a bit longer, and I'm on demo purpose, so I don't want to spend too much time in there. But this filter has been applied to this lifecycle. I got 2 environments, so the staging one and the production one, and the build basically already happened on the staging. So what's left? What I have to do now? It's basically to call the QA team to do the tests. And once they say, okay, everything is green, everything works fine, you're good to go. You can go on production. So this is the yeah. No, there is no Tomcat filter. This is just the June part. I didn't do the and yeah, I should have put the Tomcat filter, but again, I finished the slide yesterday, so sorry. Don't tell my boss. So yeah, no Tomcat filter. Just one filter, patching only from the first month of 2024. So everybody's happy. Everything has been tested. So now I want to run the second job. So this is the promote production, and I will show you the playbook after that because it's easy just to run everything when it's done. But just having an idea of how it's done might help you to understand the flow. So here I'm gonna trigger the second job, which will promote, so build basically the environment for the production. So promote to the production. Create some activation keys based on the new channels that have been created, and then register my production node. So as well here, still not critical, but I hope it will be fine. And during this time, we can check the filter here. So as I mentioned, I only have one, but this is the filter that has been created. So a very basic one. Nothing too fancy, but you can add many filters as you want. So the Tomcat one, even the Linux kernel live patching filter that can be provided automatically. So if I'm going there, still fine, I guess. Please. Or maybe not. Okay. Yeah, this is the thing, and now I'm starting to understand why people record, the demo before doing them live, because it's kind of a bit stressful. So this is the output. I retrieved the SUSE Manager credential, but as I mentioned, we will go quickly through that later. What we need to see is that everything has been promoted and the production node has been registered. So if I'm going there and I'm listing for the system, we can see that the staging one is already, fully available within SUSE Manager. The salt minion retrieve all the information and send that back to SUSE Manager. And we can see that the production one is still in the discovery process, if I can put it that way. So it means that the salt agent, the salt minion, still running and gathering information. So what we can already see from there is that because I'm using basically a content lifecycle that has been built until January 2024, I'm full of holes here. I got many issues, many vulnerabilities, many bug fixes. And so if I'm checking on this node here, we can see that we have 72 critical stuff. And that's fine, Once I will apply the patching, I should be fine. So how does it work from an Ansible playbook perspective? So this is a kind of a long playbook. I got many variables, and I already see some people screaming at me like, "Oh my God, you got private keys in GitHub. You're crazy, and you got password as well." And I don't care. That's fine. It's it's a demo. So for sure, in production, you don't do that. And this is why I just put some comment in there to making sure that nobody, open an issue in this random repo on GitHub saying, "Hey, you got your credential in there." Even if I got already a notification from GitHub complaining about, "Hey, you got a private key in there." So that's fine. You don't have access to that, and it's going to be destroyed. So at least I'm going to remove the private key. So you will have access to this Git repo. You will be able to use it. But please, don't blame me about that. So I got few variables. Again, it's up to you how you want to build your playbook, what kind of variables you need. This is how I did it. So I'm just giving, the base channel, the child channel, etc., the name of the project, the filter, and so on and so on. So it takes around 90 lines already. So, and it's, I think, a 500, a bit more. Yeah, it's a 564 lines playbook. But here, you have to keep in mind that it's that way because we don't have any Ansible module for that. And because we don't have any Ansible module for that, we don't have idempotency by default, which means that I don't want to have this playbook every time that it got triggered to redo something that he already did. This is against Ansible philosophy. So basically, before doing something in SUSE Manager, I'm checking if this something is not already there. If it's already there, I'm skipping. If it's not, I'm doing. So this is why we have kind of a big playbook. But if you got Ansible modules, you can do this logic directly within the playbook, within the module, which means that instead of having two tasks, so checking and doing, you will only have one task, which is doing, and the module will check automatically what to do. So in the pre-task, I just did the login. So I'm retrieving the login and storing that below as a fact. and I'm using this fact, so the schema cookie fact, in all of my HTTP queries here. So what it looks like, for example, to create a content lifecycle project. So this part here, sorry, and it's worst. So so from line 153, this is what it looks like basically to create a content lifecycle project leveraging the SUSE Manager API with Ansible. So we are using the Ansible built-in URI module. We're giving the endpoint, so the URL, so the host, the SUSE Manager host with the endpoint. So the content, so this is the category. The content management is the category, and this is the endpoint from this category. So I want to create a project. This is the headers, because this is JSON. And this is the payload. So as I mentioned, everything is documented within the SUSE Manager API documentation. So you have the argument, you have the type of value that this argument expects. Is it an integer? Is it a string? Is it an array? What it might be lacking, in my opinion, and I know there are some SUSE Manager people, and maybe I will have to do a pull request in the documentation, is maybe to have a code example for each endpoint. And it's a huge amount of work, and this is maybe why it's not there yet. But having just a tiny example how to do it with Python, for example, might be pretty helpful. So this is the payload. This is the format that we are sending, and this is the return code, the HTTP code that we are expecting. So in HTTP standards, 200 means that everything is fine. You are all familiar with the famous 404, you know, the not found one. So here we are just expecting for that. I'm registering the content, so the output basically of this task. And if I got something different than success true, if you remember well, when I show you the Python parts, I had a success true on top of it, and this is always returned with by the SUSE Manager API. Yeah, this is always returned. So if you don't have a 200, it means that something went wrong. So it could be a wrong token, so wrong authentication, wrong endpoint, a bad request, so the payload that you wrote is wrong. So yeah, I'm storing all of that here, and I'm failing if I don't have a success. And as I mentioned earlier, here I have the big when condition. So this basically means I want to trigger this task only if this condition is followed. So I'm checking for a previous task. So I'm listing all the content lifecycle project, and if a same content lifecycle project already exists with the same name, then I will skip this task. If not, I will create. And this is what happened, you know, around all the playbook, etc., etc. So this provides me what you can see here in the big line. So I have the register nodes. If I'm checking here on the software, sorry, not on the software, on the channel, I got my base channel, which is the content lifecycle that I used, all the child attached to it. I already showed you the content lifecycle project, the filters. I got the activation key, so for the staging, you know, all of that has been created and populated based on the variable that I provided to the Ansible playbook. So we have the name, the key. You don't have to put a key. It's automatically generated, but sometimes it's easier to just have a key, you know, to find, especially when you are using the UI, when you don't want to remember, you know, a very random string, you can just use the key to remember. The base channel, and yeah, so nothing very fancy. So this is the end of the first demo. No applause. You didn't like it, so okay. Thank you. So the second part is a bit more complex, but funnier in my opinion. Ansible is boring because, you know, it's here for a long time, and we all know to do, well, maybe not all, but it's easy to start with Ansible. What's not easy is to directly interact with the SUSE Manager API, but doing a bit more than just interacting. So here, as I mentioned earlier, it will be a chatbot. I'm leveraging an open source solution which is HiveMine. So it's basically a bus that is listening for message. And I'm sending this bus to another open source project, which is Open Voice. And basically, it's taking an intent. So I'm asking something. This is an intent. And based on this intent, a skill will be triggered. So, no. Here. So this is a web chat UI. And I need to see, I think, yeah, this is this one, and that. And so I'm connected to the web chat. So now I can ask to the web chat to do some stuff, to ask some question to SUSE Manager by leveraging the API. So basically, the web chat will send a message, and then the skill will be triggered, and based on the intent, it will perform some HTTP requests to SUSE Manager. So here, for example, we know that we have some systems that are vulnerable. So by some, I mean 2. And but let's say I don't have access to the UI. So do I have vulnerable hosts? And automatically it gives me an output like, hey, yes, you have two vulnerable hosts. So do I want to list them? Yeah, sure. So this is the 2 register nodes that got vulnerabilities. So for example, if I'm asking how many CVs on the staging one here, I got 72 vulnerabilities, which is bad. So just to making sure that it's not lying to us, we can just check on the staging nodes, and we can see that we have 72 critical patches or CVs, basically, that are actually running in there. So if I'm asking, like if I'm saying, for example, patch this node. So if I want to patch it, send. So do I really want to patch it? It's staging. If it's breaking, it's okay. You know, it's just the QA, so it's not production. No, okay. I know, but this is not production, so that's fine. There is just 10 people doing nothing because everything is broken, but this is not production. Basically, it triggered a patching. So how can I check that? It triggered a patching on the staging nodes. So if I'm going on the event, I can see that I have a package upgrade install that is triggered for now, actually. So I don't know how long it will take for SUSE Manager to pick up this and moving from pending. So we have a minute to wait with an awkward silence. So. Hey, you're doing pretty well. Oh no. So what's going on? The action was not executed because the reaction. Yeah.
Something's wrong with your timing.
Yeah, and that's fine. This is a demo, so this is why it doesn't work. And I can't say it's fine because I know. So yeah, usually what happens, it's basically the patching will be triggered and picked up by the salt minion. And when everything goes well, so not today apparently, I will have zero patches available, 0 packages available, but I will still have to reboot because I'm not using the live patching in there. But yeah, this is basically what should have happened if everything would have been okay. Sure. It says you don't know how to use SUSE Manager because you are only here for the past 6 months. I told you, I'm just here to pretend. So.
This action will be executed after 6:17 a.m. Oh yeah, that is back.
Yeah, I think I just fucked up the filter. So, yeah, no, it's on me. So.
You could just click that reschedule button and get it done. Right.
Yeah, but it's cheating. So. I know, and I can say that it's part of the demo to show that even when an action failed, you can do that very quickly through the UI because it's very user friendly, etc. But yeah. So I mentioned earlier that this part will be a bit more complicated. So here we are in a VS Code, so it's like, oh crap, it's going to be a bit more complicated. That's what it was supposed to do. So compared to the previous script that I showed during the presentation, it's a bit more complicated. I'm using classes with decorator, with some methods, etc. Again, that might be complicated for someone like me. For a very good Python developer, he's going to laugh at me, and that's fine. And again, if you are a big Python developer, please don't hate me. It's me doing Python scripts, Python coding. But again, it's very simple. So when I asked to the chatbot, like, do I have vulnerable systems or hosts or assets? This is basically the code that has been triggered to perform this action. So again, very basic, but I'm basically getting all the register nodes, and I'm looping around all these nodes, and I'm checking for example for the security advisory type of current errata. So which means that because I had 72 CVs, I got few results, and these results basically have been returned from who? From here. And this is how they appeared within the chatbots. So it's a bit more complicated. This is just to demonstrate that you can do way more complex than the previous script that I show you. And basically the limit will be you and your coding skills. So this is not my issue anymore. And I think should be kind of done. Yeah, so I had the thoughts, but I spoke too much, and I already shared the thoughts that I have about you should not be afraid about doing the automation very more often than usually you do. It could be, every day. It could be every week. It could be multiple times a day, because you don't have to only be registered to your, SLE repo. You could have your own repository, and you build new packages every day, and you want to update all these packages at each release. And you should not be afraid to do that, as long as you have automation to do the testing. And I think I'm done. Yeah. Thank you. Questions? Please, no. No?
Do you have any plans to develop an Ansible collection?
Not officially, I guess, but this is kind of a side project that I would like to have. So me trying to build some modules, and what's lacking maybe it's a SUMA SDK as well, because if you want to just do the minimum within the Ansible module, what will be the best is to have already an SDK available for SUSE Manager and leverage this SDK directly within the Ansible module. So I don't think it's part of the roadmap, but for sure it's a great idea. And yeah, I might try to build some module and maybe some collection, but on my time. So, okay, but if you want to do it and share with us,
yeah, there is already a collection out there.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it yours?
No, it's not mine. It's from,
you can claim it. They are not there.
But I contributed already to that. So.
And how is it working?
Good, pretty good.
Cool. That's good to know. Thanks.
Thank you.
I had a few issues when using the API that.
This is not a question for me, so sorry. No, go ahead.
No, but there was a few variables, and it was in the documentation. It said, pass these two variables. I tried passing them as different, string, integer, whatever. It still came back and said it failed.
Yeah.
But I had very little information, and I had nowhere to look to figure out what it was actually looking for. Is there a place that I can go to look and see the API side to see what it actually is expecting?
So I got an issue like that with the date, because it says, hey, you need to use the date in this format.
Exactly.
And I did it, and it didn't work. And I was like, what? No.
Yeah.
So I was banging my head to understand basically what was the format. And the only way for me to find a solution was to go on the UUnite GitHub repo and check for the endpoint and the issues as well when someone had the same issue I had. So I was lucky.
Okay.
Hi, I am the SUMA guy. I'm the person responsible for the team behind.
Thank you.
SUMA. No, really, I really appreciate this feedback. Like, look, we need to improve the API, we need to improve the documentation, we need to improve, but we need to get that registered in some way, whether it is a service request or it is a bug. Please open it.
Yeah.
Okay, we are trying to do our best to improve in there. The documentation team is already going through a lot of effort to improve that. And one of the gaps that we know we have and we are working on, we will be working on especially for the next 5.1 release, is in the API documentation. So apologies for all the inconvenience caused with the API so far.
No,
I'm
that's
looking
okay.
forward to improvement.
I just had one issue with all of that, and I was pretty new to that. And basically, I have been onboarded with the official documentation, and this is the only issue I had. So I think it's not too bad. So good job.
Good. Happy to know. So now keep using SUSE Manager, enjoy it, and I'm happy to receive your feedback.
Thank you.